Alright, welcome to the Red Yeti podcast, episode 2. Just having a look at the number 1, the previous video that I made. I realised I got 13 views, which is 13 more than I was expecting to have, which is fantastic. So all you 13 people out there, thank you. I really appreciate it. Becoming a bit of a seasoned pro right now, I guess. I was having a look, I searched up Red Yeti podcast, and I realised there's someone else called the Red Yeti. Don't think I've seen I'm seeing a picture of him, doesn't really look much like a Yeti to me. So I think maybe someday we're going to have to, have a wrestle, or maybe a rap battle to see who gets to keep that name. First thing on the list is how to make a lot of money in a short amount of time, not necessarily legally. We're going to be talking about growing your own weed farm today. Now, over in England, it's strange. I think you can get arrested for dealing, but not for possession. I'm not entirely sure what all the laws are. I think they don't arrest anymore just because it's not really worth their time. And I reckon it's going to be legal, actually, probably 5 to 10 years time over here. So the first thing to do is, obviously, if you have some initial capital, start buying up shop fronts so that when it does become legal, you're probably going to be able to start selling it for a lot of money, because there are going to be very few people that are going to be selling it to big to begin with. But we're taking into account that you're going to start up your own grassroots sole trader business, growing weed. Now, I probably wouldn't recommend setting up as a limited company, just because it's illegal, and they're probably not going to be too happy with that, the old government. But obviously there's certain things you have to think about. It's probably growing it. Best do it inside. If you've got a flat with a spare room, grow them in there. I'm not entirely sure how much UV lights cost, but I've been told that you've got to use UV lights to allow it to grow. Let's have a look. UV lights. 35 quid for a UV fluorescent light box. So obviously you have to buy a couple of those to fill out your room, and I'm not entirely sure where you get weed seeds from. We went to Magaluf a couple, 1 or 2 months ago. We saw that they had those on sale, but I'm not entirely sure whether they're real or not, but maybe it's worth a go. This idea hasn't been completely formed yet, so it's going to take a bit of ironing out, unfortunately. Once you've got those seeds, obviously, growing them in your room, selling them is an interesting one. I'm guessing you don't really want to... You don't... Sorry about that. I've got a really bad throat. I'm guessing you don't actually want to be the one that's kind of out on the street selling them, maybe in the office, depending on your target market. You kind of want to be the wholesale. You want to be the Costco of weed selling. So I guess maybe it's about finding friends or hanging outside of school and maybe asking some kid. I'm joking, by the way. I know the government are probably listening to this, or Facebook looking for some ads. So I'm just kidding, But then obviously I was speaking to a mate a couple of weeks back, and I was like, how do you know whether you're selling anything to kids or not, So I guess that's an ethical question when it comes to the distribution of kind of mind-altering substances to a certain extent. So my guess would be, once you've got your distributors, make them sign a waiver and try and set up some kind of staff training so that they know to ID people prior to selling them, stuff like that. I think that's really important. So, make sure when you're doing something illegal and unethical, make sure that you have some, strong moral principles. We went over last week about kind of how to launder money, and I'm not entirely sure how much money you can make as a weed dealer. Probably 200 to 300 quid, 500 to £1,000 a week, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. So you can't really buy up property unless you're looking to hoard cash for huge amounts of time. Guessing best way to do it could be to, buy small things, like I mentioned last time, like watches, with cash and sell them online for a fraction of the cost. So, I mean, in the beginning, you can definitely buy a watch for $2,000 from a shop, and just say that you've, I don't know, got money from your birthday, or you're looking to buy your boss a present. I don't flipping know, do I? Then, sell that online for maybe $8,000 as opposed to 10. So you're losing $2,000. That's just the cost of doing business, I guess, isn't it? And that kind of leads us into the next idea, I guess, which is growing truffles. I saw this thing on YouTube where this guy was earning tons per kilogram, tons of money selling truffles. I think they're fairly rare because you can't. Flipping heck, they're quite rare because you could never really grow them. You kind of had to use pigs or dogs or something to try and find them in the woods. But I think there's a way of growing them now. You kind of need a symbiotic plant, the truffle, because the truffle's a fungus, I think. So it can kind of feed off of that tree, essentially. And so, much like growing weed, you can grow truffles in as long as you got the kind of environment right for them to grow in, and you can sell them. I'm just having a look at some of the prices here. Ooh, there's one called a Vic. I don't know. I'll look at another one. There's one called the Carpentrans. 70 kilos is 400. That's not too bad actually, but there are some that are flipping nuts. You can sell them $2,500 truffle. Flipping heck, yeah. So I'm thinking per kilo you can get $4,000 or $5,000 depending on what kind of truffle you're growing. So it's just a matter of trying to either buy one or find one in the woods. Maybe hire a pig or something and find that one, and you can probably cultivate it. I'm not an expert on mushrooms, but I mean, for that amount of money, it's definitely worth doing the research when it comes to that. And with that, it's a bit easier to deal with, I guess, than the growing of Sweet Mary Jane, because it's legal. So you can just set up a limited company. I would definitely, like, one thing I'm starting to think about is you can't treat that, because you're self-employed. You can't treat it like you're going to be making that income for the rest of your life. Get in, and when you're making if you sell 10 kilos of these flipping truffles a week, oh my throat! Then you're making 50 grand. You do that for a year, you've got quite a few grand. You've got 250, and so that's the time when you really got to start thinking about probably sticking the money into a hedge fund, maybe, but probably splitting it up, because hedge funds can go down. Hedge fund, houses, maybe even invest in a small business around your kind of area. We have a window cleaning business that seems to be blowing up recently, and I'm sure if you were a successful truffle farmer, you could go up to him and be like, look, listen fella, I'll give him a shout out. His name Stubby's Window Cleaning. If you live kind of around the England area, I'm not entirely sure how far they go out, but I'm sure they'll be more than happy to clean your windows if you pay them, obviously. So you go up to someone like him and be like, listen, I'll buy 3 more vans for you if you kind of pay me back over the next 10 years with 5% interest, or I'll buy a stake in your company maybe. Then you've got that. It's completely passive income. And kind of, I'm guessing it's best to try and distribute your wealth for as long as possible. It's strange. I was thinking about trying to invest in truffle farming, but I'm sure there must be some kind of barrier, and it's not really a very smooth segue from being an accountant to making truffles, I guess. And it's about finding distributors. You just go up to restaurants in London. I guess you just call them up. I'll try it out right now. So if I go on, I just search nice restaurants, London. Nice restaurants in London. I'm sure there'll be, 100 best restaurants in London. I'm guessing you could call each one of these and be like, we can offer you these truffles at a fraction of the price that you're normally paying for them, and they could just pay you cash for that, I guess. The third idea of how to make a lot of money in a short amount of time is online personal training. I'm just kidding about that, but it was an incredibly smooth segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which is using bodybuilding and strength, kind of strongman training to help stroke survivors recover. This has been really interesting to me. I've kind of been thinking about it for a while because back when I was a personal trainer, I trained one or two people that had recovered from strokes, and I trained a couple kids who had cerebral palsy, which is pretty much the same thing, or it has the same effect as a stroke. And so I think the nerves die off to certain areas. So for example, your arm or your leg, it's normally just one side, and the kind of arm tends to shrivel up. You tend to see flexion at the elbow and at the wrist, and it's kind of close into the body. But one thing that really interested me was kind of the idea of using something like, firstly, we'll take bodybuilding for example. A lot of people tend to really focus on trying to feel the muscle when they're lifting weights, and I'm guessing, I could be completely wrong, but that seems that kind of mind-muscle connection that bodybuilders build up over a long period of time could be one part of the answer to how to bring stroke patients back to normal, I guess. Because say, for example, you go up to an experienced bodybuilder and ask him to flex his pec, for example, or his back, certain muscles that we kind of really aren't used to flexing as normal people, they'll be able to find it, they'll be able to flex that muscle. And so, maybe I just don't know how it would work. Maybe it's a nice idea to try and teach stroke patients, especially their kind of arms and stuff like that. It's very easy to get them to be doing curls. Just try and cock that wrist back slightly, and you'll really start to feel that bicep pinch. And I also think just hypertrophy around the affected areas are probably going to help increase function, because kind of if your arm is 3 times as strong as it was, even if you've only got half the function, then you've still got enough to move around, if that makes any sense. So when I was training this fellow, his name was Alan, I just got him doing some real kind of simple movements. And I feel like also there's this kind of craze about, my throat is on fire today, I'm so sorry I'm going to sound so nasty and crackly, but I don't listen to my podcast, only 13 of you do, so it's not my problem, it's yours. I think there's this massive focus on trying to get the kind of core strong amongst people that are new to fitness, and I think that's important as well. But some people just really can't find their core, and it's strange because back when I was a kid and I started working out, I didn't care about my core. It just kind of came along eventually once I've been working out for a couple of years. And so my kind of theory is when people really aren't in touch with their bodies, say for example people that have had strokes and they're literally not in touch with their arm, the nerves are dead around there, I think it's probably a really good idea to start from the extremities and work your way into the core. What I mean by this is, when I was training this guy, we started with just basic things like dumbbell curls, dumbbell bench presses, one arm rows on the cable, machine, and he didn't have to feel anything, but he's just going through the movement. And unfortunately, I stopped that job prior to us making any massive progress. But kind of, I guess, from the outside, you can work your way in. So I completely went off trail there. Just something I've been thinking about, kind of my, I know someone who's recently got rheumatoid arthritis. I'm trying to get them to work out. It's been difficult because they've been sat at a desk their entire life and they don't know how to use the muscles in their body. So I tried to do some like weird fancy core exercises. It just didn't work, you know. We can't find them. So it's probably best to start from the outside, get the arms strong, you know, get the grip strong. And then you can work your way into the upper back and the pecs and the glutes and the hamstrings. Once you've got a base of movement there, once you know kind of how to move well, I guess. The second thing I was thinking about when it comes to stroke patients is kind of old school strongman training. And by the way, I should have said prior to this that I'm not qualified in any sense in terms of rehabbing stroke patients. This is literally just these are just ideas of mine. I'm guessing, you know, the 13 people watching this, if they make it this far through the podcast, kind of hoping, or if one of you is an expert on stroke rehab, please let me know. But what I was thinking was kind of old school strongman training. If any of you have done like grip training, strongman training, when you're picking something up with your hands that's really big and awkward, what you'll find is your hand lights up. Your hands apparently have a hell of a lot of nerve endings in them. And so, oh my goodness. And so when you squeeze onto something, this thing happens called irradiation. And irradiation means that all the muscles around your forearm lights up basically. And you'll feel it. Like if you try and pick up like an anvil or a big old stone with one hand, you'll feel your hand light up and your forearms light up. And I think that kind of lighting up, I guess, is the kind of nerves being kind of activated, or the nerves becoming more kind of active. So my guess would be kind of when it comes to someone, if you're listening to this and you have just had a stroke, I mean, the first thing to do would just be try and build big, strong muscles. Don't worry about trying to kind of activate things, but just get your curls stronger, get your bench press stronger, you know, try and get your rows stronger. Try and learn how to squat or deadlift maybe. Obviously, try and get the movement right first, but really just focus on really simple things. And as you get more muscular, you'll eventually start to be able to activate the muscles that you want to activate, I guess. So it's quite, I don't know, it's always been, I don't know, it just seems strange that people, they just, when they rehab people, they do weird things like just like trying to get them, I don't know, to walk, something like that. Surely it's kind of better to just try and get them really strong to begin with. Then when it gets to walking, they're kind of using a lower percentage of this. I'm rambling now, I've got absolutely no idea, but that's my kind of, it's my take on the matter. I definitely think when it comes to rehabbing kind of stroke victims, I feel like maybe you could take a bodybuilding approach and you might see some benefit from it. I've completely run out of things to talk about right now, so I'm sorry I didn't do one last week. I'm sure you all 13 of you were on the edge of your seat waiting for it to come out on Sunday afternoon, but it didn't happen, so I'm really sorry about that. I will do one next week though. I'm sure of it. Maybe. Anyway, cheers guys, you know, cue the outro music.